Hello, I'm Oliver Colling, and this is my 70s TV childhood. Hello, and welcome to my 70s TV childhood. We are a podcast dedicated to celebrating what it was like to grow up as a child in 1970s Britain, and the special role that television played in our lives back then. This episode is due to be released just after Christmas, and I hope that you've all had a lovely Christmas day and that you're enjoying the festive period. If you're overindulged on turkey and all the trimmings on Christmas Day, then I hope that Alka-Seltzer is close to hand. And I also hope that the big man himself called on Christmas Eve and that you've got everything on your Christmas list. We've spoken in previous festive episodes about some of the great and some of the not so great presents that we all had as children. And if you did get Action Man, Subbuteo and Cluedo in your stocking this year, then well done. But one thing we haven't spoken about that much is the Christmas annual. As a child, I loved getting a few annuals alongside my presents. And this time between Christmas and New Year was spent not only playing with toys, but also reading the new annuals cover to cover. Oh, and watching a bit of television as well. Just before Christmas, I caught up with one of our listeners who shares that passion. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Lee. Lee is a long-time listener and friend of the podcast, and really good of you to join us, Lee. Hello.
Hi, welcome.
And the reason that I'm talking to Lee today is a little while ago, Lee suggested that annuals would be a good thing for us to talk about because, I don't know about you, I loved having annuals at Christmas. And it was always a question of which ones could I have, which ones couldn't I have, because there were so many around. And I used to love just opening them up on Christmas Day, reading them. I read them again and again from cover to cover. So Lee suggested, wouldn't it be great to look at annuals, particularly those that had a TV tie-in? So thank you for that idea, Lee. Before we start doing that, could you give us a bit of background as to what was your TV childhood like?
I think very similar to yourself, Oliver, I would probably what you would categorise as a TV child. All my toys seem to be TV related. $6 Million Man, all the Dinky Thunderbirds toys, things like Evil Knievel and Action Man. But a lot of the cars for shows like Starsky, The Hutch. My mum used to moan, how are you ever going to learn to read? Because you watch so much TV all the time. So again, we were chatting earlier about different programs and such. Every program that you pretty much talk about, I remember, except for that Freddie Garrity one. Never nearly off my radar. I don't think they showed that in Southern TV. That was my region, which did How with Fred Dine and Jack Hargreaves. And of course, the other show wasn't really for children, but Out of Town was very popular. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I think he was probably the last person on mainstream TV to smoke a pipe.
Definitely, in that fake shed.
So annuals, it does just bring lots of memories flooding back. And what particularly made you think of annuals as being a good thing for us to talk about?
I think it's because you're right. It does bring you back to places. For example, I've got one here that this was a Gunsmoke annual from 1974, and it was mine. But I have no recollection of the show at all. So I would have been 5 going on 6. But obviously, I was given the annual, but I can't remember the show. I know I've read about it, but I have no memory whatsoever. But I remember the annual really vividly. It's quite sort of graphic sort of comic strips. And there was one script called The Mystery Stage about a stagecoach arriving in the town and there was no one on it. What had happened? And they had to go and investigate. And also, again, nostalgic things. Like on the back, this lovely painting of James Arness and my late grandfather. He did a copy of it. He painted it himself. And I remember I had it in my bedroom wall. So little things like that, really. And then obviously, if you like TV shows, you want all the products that go with them, really. And then I just did a bit of delving into it. I was quite amazed, really, the number of different annuals for different programs that were around.
Yeah, it's amazing because almost everything you thought about had an annual, it seemed, at one point. Yeah. And I've been digging around as well, so I've got all sorts of things. I've got the Tom and Jerry annual. Tom and Jerry, which is, you look through it, it's just reasonably, I think a lot of them quite old cartoons that have just been repackaged and said it's an annual for 1974. And much as I did like Tom and Jerry, kids today wouldn't believe the sort of thing that was shown on television.
No. Exactly. I mean, you talk about the cartoons, for example, they made annuals for things like Pixie and Dixie and Top Cat in the 70s. That was actually created in the early 60s, but because it was shown so often in the UK. They just done Star Trek annual. I mean, Star Trek finished production in 1969, but there was a Star Trek annual every year from like 1970 right through to about 81. I had a few of those as well, the sort of facts and figures and things that you get in them. But yeah, all good fun, really.
So do you have any favourites that you particularly remember?
I definitely do. I've got a few of them with me here. If you're talking about annuals in regard to what they were like, I've dug out this Space 1999 annual. Love the show. Again, it only did 2 seasons, but they managed to get 5 annuals out of it. I'll tell you again, and for me, if you had to think about what annuals like in the 1970s, I think this pretty much covers every base. So, for example, if I just turn to some of the pages, a lot of annuals, like the Doctor Who ones, have a lot of really boring space facts. We talked often how the 1970s were a bit obsessed with space. But this is all about the moon landing. Absolutely nothing to do with Space 1999 at all. But it's just a few padded out with lots of. I never read them. Or I haven't read it now. Never read them. I found them really boring. The obligatory sort of board game that everyone seemed to have in the centre pages, just basically going around. You provide your own dice, provide your own counters. Limited entertainment again. Then you had features about again humour again using photographs from the show. I know you were talking about Dad's Army earlier. One of your favourite Dad's Army jokes.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I've got the Dad's Army annual for 1973 here, and yes, they have all kinds of features. They have some jokes in here. They've got one left on parade. Lance Corporal Jones says, "I fell down the stairs yesterday with 2 pints of beer." Sergeant Wilson, "Did you spill it?" Lance Corporal Jones, "No, I kept my mouth shut." How appropriate is that for a young audience?
I know. And again, the other thing, some of the annuals did actually have features about the actors and stars and the characters. And I always liked Paul Morrow in Space 1999 because my best friend at school at the time, Paul, we all called him Paul Morrow, just because it was Space 1999. But in regard to annuals, the fact is, they were so popular that any program pretty much seemed to generate quite a few of them. I mean, for example, can you guess how many like Magic Roundabout annuals?
Oh, I can't even begin to think.
15. So again, longer than this show. I did a little bit of looking at some of the sort of programs that you've talked about quite recently. I know a lot of people didn't like Rod Hull and Emu very much, but there were 3 Emu annuals, so they managed to eke those out. The programs like Black Beauty, 10 annuals for Black Beauty. That's got me. How many times could they retell those stories? Follyfoot, did you watch Follyfoot?
Oh, I did. I like Follyfoot.
Yeah, the Lightning Tree theme was probably the highlight of the show, really. But 5 annuals, only ran for like 2 seasons, but they managed to get 5 annuals out.
I guess they know their audience.
Yeah, one of my favourites, Basil Brush, 11 Basil Brush annuals. So they again right through, and again like TV programs like the Chimps, the PG Chimps, 2 annuals of those. Again, would never have thought to have an annual with the PG Chimps. No. But again, you had programs that were very short-lived. On top of my head, I'm thinking things like Man from Atlantis, Gemini Man. They're shows that only lasted a few weeks in America or cancelled.
Yeah.
Obviously, the BBC bought them over here, and they still did annuals for them. I mean, I've got one here. Again, it was a popular show, but anyway, like Return of the Saint with Ian Ogilvy.
Yes.
It follows the same format as all the other annuals. You've got comic strips, lots of photographic posters. I thought he looked like he's got a bit of indigestion actually in that image, but no. And there's a quiz, there's a Saint, Return of the Saint quiz, a little bit about the creator of the Saint and so on. But again, lots of one-off annuals that just were there at the time for a very short lived show. I said about the Gemini Man, I was at a sort of book fair place last year, and there was one there for about 5, and I'm denied about buying it, and I didn't. I didn't really, because you always buy them because they're so bad. Some of them, aren't they?
Yes. I suppose we as kids didn't realise that there was a little bit of a cynical marketing ploy here going on. But they weren't all bad, but I know some of them were not great.
No. Again, if you take a sideways view, programs that were repeated that were popular, I used to love like the Ron Eli Tarzan.
Yes.
Why? I've got a few Tarzan annuals that I was given. They don't really relate to the TV show, but that's quite a rather dramatic cover of Tarzan. And again, I quite like them because they're just quite gaudy comic strips. There's no features or anything. And I imagine they're just like reprints of comics from America.
Yes.
Just to do that. And again, on your show you had this week in regards to toys at Christmas, you said 1973, the sort of Marx toys, the Lone Ranger and Tonto. Love those toys, had quite a few of them. And again, I was given a Lone Ranger annual, and it's got Clayton Moore, the actor who played the Lone Ranger in the 1950s and early 60s, which I think were repeated a bit on the TV. I don't remember them that well, but again, I was given this more because I had the toys.
Yes.
And I watched the program. And again, it's just a series of reprinted comic strips that they've just put together. And if you look at the spine, you've got Brown and Watson. They're one of the sort of publishers that created. There's 2 or 3 of them that are quite popular. The other one is distributors. They seem to have the market as well. I think they did their Space 1999 ones and $6 Million Man. I think the return.
I'm just looking at mine now. Dad's Army, World Distributors.
Yeah, they seem to corner the market. And the other one, which didn't have the name of the company, but Stafford Pemberton, they had the Vulture on them. It was on the return of this annual there. So you might think they seem to be the 3 main ones that were around. But again, in terms of annuals, probably the ones that I really love were the $6 Million Man as well.
Yeah,
I had all of them. I've got a couple of them. And again, you talk about things that you remember at the time. Quite a nice, dramatic.
That's good.
But one thing, again, 40 odd years later, nearly 50 years later, just absolutely love this bionic eye type quiz where you've got close up of things that you can try and guess what they are, pretend you've got a bionic eye. That one there was probably the easiest. Can you work that one out?
Ooh, is it a battery?
Yeah, a battery, find the eye. Yeah, it's a few matches, a side of a coin. And again, as a kid, I just loved it. Just those things. Again, a nice range of very bright comic strips. Some of the content, though, maybe would be not quite very appropriate nowadays, sort of racial stereotypes.
Yes.
Again, another side of annuals that maybe aren't TV related were things again like Warlord. I used to love the Warlord, and I know you talked to you about before.
Yes, I used to love that.
Again, the view of Germans and Japanese are not particularly, you wouldn't get away with.
No, I've been rereading the Battle Picture Weekly annual from 1976, and it's some of it is quite shocking, to be honest.
You just wouldn't get away with it nowadays.
No.
Really. In terms of bad things about annuals, I think I posted it on the My 70s Facebook pages. I love Doctor Who, and I've got quite a few of the annuals, but the 1976 annual is considered to be the worst of the series, and I just happen to have it here. Okay, quite a nice sort of cover. Okay, this is Tom Baker. It's a publicity shot from his first story, Robot.
Yes.
Now, apparently the artwork was farmed out to like an Italian company, and they were only given about 4 reference photographs. So the whole annual has the same 2 or 3 pictures of Tom Baker sort of reused at slightly different angles. And then again, it's got all the things we talked about, like space facts and things like that are really boring. But it's absolutely bonkers artwork. That's meant to be Sarah Jane Smith, Elizabeth Sladen. She looks like she's got that.
I thought it was Layla. But no, it's meant to be Sarah J.
But the worst one, which always makes me laugh. Okay, so this is meant to be the Dr. Sarah and Harry Sullivan, the late Ian.
Right.
They've obviously just above of a man smoking a fag in the background. Tom Baker's, this is I think when we got the role, so this was just a sort of a photograph they had of him at a press conference or something like that. So not even costume, so it doesn't even match any of the story. And it doesn't even look like Elizabeth Sladen. So again, it's just they actually such limited. It's considered to be quite the nadir of the series, really. So it's one of those so bad it's good annual.
But presumably it's still sold hundreds of thousands.
They also, it's the law of diminishing returns in terms of annuals. Because, for example, Blue Peter perennially had annual year after year.
Yes, I have. I've got the Blue Peter book, the 11th book with John Noakes doing some skydiving. Yeah. So that's...
Bit of a hero is John Noakes. Have you ever watched him climbing Nelson's column?
Oh, yes. Yeah. But I used to like the Blue Peter books. Just looking through here, it's there's a whole lot of things. A lot of educational stuff, which I don't deny. There's a bit of education. There's John Noakes doing his skydiving. There's Valerie Singleton on a special assignment in Venice, I think it is.
Yeah. The makes and do's as well, aren't there? There was always a make and do that you can create.
Well, there's always a story. I don't know, a story of Bleep and Booster.
Yeah, they had their own. They're from the 60s, and they used to be a bit of a filler on the show itself. And then they had their own sort of comic strips in newspapers, and I think they had their annuals as well. So someone may have a Bleep and Booster annual in their loft. But it's interesting with Blue Peter because actually the last Blue Peter annual was actually produced in 2011. So it went for years and years through from like the early 60s right through the 70s, 80s, 90s into the noughties. And it just stopped really. And I think there's a bit out of favour, aren't they, in terms of what children really. I mean, I think football annuals are still quite popular, the Match of the Day and things like that. But in terms of TV related things, I'm not sure if it's.
No, I suppose tastes have changed a bit because I used to love the football thing, so I used to get Shoot annual and other sporting things like Roy the Rovers and Tiger and things like that. I also managed to find the World of Sport annual from 1978, which is a rerun of the 1978 World Cup in it, in which I think it's Jack Charlton says the World Cup was really boring and dull. As a 11-year-old at the time, I thought it was great.
Yeah, I
thought it was really good, but apparently not. And great picture of Kevin Keegan with a beautiful haircut there.
Yes, lovely. If you are talking about the value of annual.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Nostalgia. If anyone's got this at home, if you want to dig out your loft, okay, because it's quite rare. The 1971 Doctor Who annual, it's called the Pink Annual. It's John Pertwee's first annual. There was a very limited print run on it. Quite a vivid cover. I went on eBay today and had a quick look. There were 2 copies for sale. Do you want to guess maybe how much they were, Oliver?
I probably couldn't tell. They probably had the corner cut out. Do you remember? People used to give you the price cut off.
Oh, they're a bit more than that now. I think like 25p.
Yeah,
they were at the
five shillings or 25 pence.
The first one it's £150.
Wow.
And then the second one is £312 plus £4 postage. They're not even going to post it to you for nothing. Wow. Yeah. So if anyone listening's got that at home in their loft or something, keep hold of it or sell it because it's very valuable in terms of annuals. It may be a nostalgia thing, but what's happening now is there's a growing market for like retro annuals. They do it with Doctor Who. I've seen some Robin of Sherwood. I know that's an 80s programme, but they've some Robin of Sherwood ones that they've done. And also a Blake Seven. But one I was given last year, which is really good fun, is Whatever Happened to the Lightly Lads annual.
That is brilliant.
It really is. I have to say, love the programme. And it was the first podcast I listened to. For
great,
you.
Yeah. It's been one of our most popular.
Yeah, I did the search. Yes. See and it came across it. And this really is good fun. It's not cheap, but it has all the elements you'd want for a lovely annual. You've got some comic strips. Again, Terry gets Bob into trouble with Thelma. Lots of lovely retro marketing things from James Boland and Rodney Buse selling things to do with the film as well. Yeah. So there's lots of nice things in there. Again, a real nostalgic trip. Yeah. And the same company, they do ones for the Sweeney and things like that now. So if you want to go and look at this.
That's a real labour of love by somebody there.
Yeah, someone's, again, because they're quite expensive, there's a limited print now.
Yes.
So it's now, if that's just fun things, if you want to give it for a friend or for yourself.
That's interesting. Yeah. I'll keep an eye out for that because it's interesting you mentioned the Sweeney. I remember a friend of mine had the Sweeney annual one year.
Yeah, seems very inappropriate, doesn't it?
It was, but you thought about it. I think I mentioned this on the podcast previously. I actually had a Sweeney letraset kit.
Yeah.
Where you could scratch. Do you remember the letraset where you rubbed it with a...
Yeah, with a coin.
You had villains with sawed-off shotguns shooting at policemen and things like that. Who was that aimed at the under-10s?
No, it's sort of, it is amazing. But as I said, the market at the time, in terms of what they produced, it was phenomenal, really. I think 1979 was the year that most annuals were produced, where real floodgate of annuals in that year. Might not be right, but I think that's what I read.
Interesting.
That seemed to be the end of the 70s was when they really were at their zenith, really. But pretty much any TV show you can think of, there's an annual for it. So.
Yeah, that's it. Because my sister is 4 years older than me, so we had annuals for as long as I could remember. So we always had them around. And I found I've actually got one of them here, one of the older ones that we got, which was the Pogles from 1970. And some of our listeners will remember the Pogles. It's one of these ones that some people remember it, some people don't. But it's absolutely, as you say, we've got some comic strips featuring the characters, the Mr. and Mrs. Pogle, and there's some Pippin, who then had and I've also got a Pippin annual here because Pippin was one of those magazines with lots of TV stories in. There's a little story here. Again,
obligatory game. Bring your own dice.
Yes. Here's a dice game for 2 players. One player is Pippin, one is Tog. They are racing through the giant marrow to win the first prize. Use buttons as counters and throw a dice for the moves.
That would have kept you entertained for hours on Christmas Day.
And here's a colouring in section, which neither I nor my sister have actually done.
I'm afraid I looked at some of mine and some of the crosswords and things and the spot the differences. I've actually annotated them at the time. But again, that's what they were for.
Oh, here's one that's half done.
Yeah. Was that you or your sister?
No, ideally.
When you think about annuals, I just think about how many I had each Christmas. I must have had at least 2 or 3. I'm thinking if I had the Doctor Who one, $6 Million Man, Warlord, it wasn't just a one-off. I think you had, for me, it was quite a big thing I had, and I absolutely loved them, really.
I did as well. And I just think you had because we mentioned Pippin, there was also, do you remember TV Comic?
Countdown.
Lots of, I'll have a look. I've got Pippin annuals for 1970 and 1971. So the Pippin annual on the front, we've got a nice snowman, obviously. And we've got Trumpton. And we've got Windy Miller. We've got the Wooden Tops. Busy Lizzie, if you remember her. Andy Pandy. I hated Andy Pandy. I really didn't.
Not a favourite of mine, really.
Bill and Ben, the Herbs, and Pippin and Tog. Oh, and Mary Mungo and Midge.
Yeah, they're two Mary Mungo.
We like that.
Yeah, they're 2 annuals of their own. I checked that one out. And I think Trumpton had 6 annuals, so 5 or 6 annuals. So they managed to, again, for a programme that was created in the mid-60s, they managed to keep it. And again, I think because of that policy from the BBC, particularly of constantly repeating programmes from that era, it just generated an interest every year.
It did. I've just found on the front page here, this is quite nice, I didn't notice this before. This Pippin annual belongs to Oliver Edward Colling, The Vicarage, Padgate, written in my mother's handwriting.
Yeah.
That's rather nice, isn't it?
Just in case you took it to a party or something and to show somebody, or took it to school for the last day of term, when you get to
bring the games and things.
Make sure you know it's yours when you bring it.
But they're quite good. The quality of them is not bad at all, really.
Not bad at all, no. And just thought another rare annual that people might have got. The 1973 Mr. Ben annual, that's apparently quite rare as well. And that can fetch £200-300 as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you've got that one in your attic, and dig that one out.
Yeah, so if any of our listeners have got that, dig out your annuals.
Yeah.
What's the most bizarre annual do you think you come across, Luke?
I suppose ones that are just one-offs, really. Just ones that you just think, oh, do you make I'll tell you which one it is. Do you remember I think I posted it on the Facebook page, Holmes and Yo-Yo?
Yeah, it's a show that passed me by.
Literally, think it was only 13 episodes were ever made. And I think it just shown one summer. Yeah, that following Christmas, you could buy a Holmes and Yo-Yo. I haven't got it, but God knows what will be in it, really, because it's such a limited sort of plots and storyline. And
we have a cartoon strip, we have a game, bring your own dice.
Yeah, game, you bring your own dice, probably some, maybe not space facts, but police facts or robot facts. There would have been robot facts in it. It might be worth trying to track that one down. But that would probably, things like that would be probably the bizarrest, really, just in terms of what they produce. Again, there obviously was a market for them.
What about today? I'm a bit removed from the annuals market, but I do see they still have summer. You do see them as WH Smith and places.
Yeah, a lot of football annuals. I think they're very well, aren't they, in regard to that? Not many TV programs now. I think maybe Gladiator or something like that. Programs that are just popular at the moment, really. But I think it's just a different sort of culture, isn't it? Where we are with an online culture. For example, comics, you see them in the shops, but they all seem to have a free gift on them to try and entice children to read them. Whereas when I was a child, I read things like Whizzer and Chips and the Beano and the Dandy and 2000 AD and all those sorts of. I seem to have just read it, but again, that type of culture of reading and keeping comics like annuals, it's just fading away slightly.
Yes.
It's more things are online.
Yeah, I used to love waiting for. I think the comics used to come on Fridays, I think mainly. So I was allowed to have one comic a week, and then if I was good or if I was particularly persistent, I might get another one every now and again.
There is a market But I think it's just very depleted now. So, as I said, 1979 seems to be the high watermark for annuals in this country.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think what would be a good current TV show that would have a good annual. You'd always have the EastEnders
Right.
or the Coronation Street annuals.
Well, I think they did do those in the 80s. I think there are some like Only Fools and Horses. I think there may have been.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those sort of programs. But again, because TV viewing is so fragmented now, you don't have that cultural understanding where everyone will sit together and what thing. I mean, the thing that popped to mind, I remember sitting with my dad watching Fantasy Island and just there, and then suddenly it was quite a frightening bit, him throwing a cushion at me and making me jump out of my skin. There's little sort of things that you used to do when you were a kid, or just going into school the next day and talking about what you watched.
Yeah, no, that's a big memory I have. It was a common reference point, wasn't it?
Yeah, we often have a joke about the fact that, as I do, I love the $6 Million Man, and I was in a school play, and we were meant to perform. It was over a couple of nights, and the second night I realised it was the same night the $6 Million Man.
Oh, no.
It was part 2 of that story with Bigfoot, the really infamous Bigfoot story. And that moral dilemma of, do you go and watch, do your play, or do you? I'm afraid I stayed at home. I'm not $6 million. My neighbour's mud at school the next day, but I have to say it's probably worth it. Because you couldn't record it, you couldn't see it again. You can go and find it on YouTube now.
Yeah.
Some of those rerun channels now on satellite TV, you can watch. And I watched a lot of the $6 Million Man on that. Afraid the memory does cheat a little bit. It's quite poor, actually, some of it. But
I always think, some of these things do stand the test of time, some of them don't. And in some ways, it's nice to see them again. But I think that probably sounds like an idea for another podcast, things that have stood the test of time or not.
Definitely.
Thanks, Lee. In terms of, have you any final thoughts on annuals?
I think really they're of their time and their place. They can bring back such great memories, not just of the TV program itself, but of Christmases, them opening them up, reading through them. For me, I didn't ever really discard them really quickly. I always did go over them, reread them again and again. Hated the text-based stories. Just love the comic strips, but never read that. And remember, don't read the space facts because they're really boring.
I think I used to read them from cover to cover and read them for years and go back to them again and again.
And again, I do, and as when I'm out in jumble sales or these book barn type places, go and look for those. And if I see one, I'll just grab one. I saw one, a Kung Fu one.
Kung Fu?
I think they do give you a proper bit of nostalgia, and for different reasons. Sometimes because they're quite poor as an adult looking back, really. But at the same time, because you didn't have access to the programs again, you could rewatch like you can now on demand, go and watch you missed. So for me to remember about Bigfoot, I had to look at the $6 Million Man annual to do that.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's lovely. Thanks for sharing those memories, Lee. I'm sure lots of our listeners and viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, will have similar memories of annuals. So please get in touch and share them with us. They'd really love to hear your stories about the annuals you had. Some of them are bizarre ones. Do get in touch. So, Lee, thank you ever so much for sharing your thoughts on annuals and for suggesting this for an episode. It's really taken me back, and I'm going to be spending probably the rest of the Christmas holidays reading my old annuals because I don't think I'll be getting any new ones in my sack.
It's been a real pleasure, Oliver. Thank you very much.
Lee.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Lee, for sharing your memories and insights with us. I have to say, I do love the idea of the Whatever Happens to the Likely Lads annual. That's inspired. So what are your memories of getting annuals at Christmas? Which were your favourites and which ones were duds? You can let us know by leaving a comment on our blog at www.my70stvchildhood.com or on our social media sites on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter/X or LinkedIn. Alternatively, you can email me, oliver@my70stvchildhood.com. So that's all we have time for this episode, and indeed this year. So thank you for all your continued support and engagement with us. It has been a pleasure looking back at 70s Britain and its TV with you over the last 12 months. So all that's left for me to say is, on behalf of everyone here at My 70s TV Childhood, thanks for listening, and may 2026 be a wonderful year for you all. Happy New Year.